Welcome back, ladies. Today I have Jessica Erlandson here with me. She is a yoga therapist and a menopause educator from Calgary, and we connected very randomly in a Facebook group for yoga therapists. You are actually the first guest I've had on that I don't have a personal relationship with, so thank you for jumping in here with me. I picked you out really intentionally because I love your story. You represent someone to me that has taken something hard that you've experienced, multiple hard things that you've experienced, and you've turned it into something beautiful, and you've turned it into something beautiful that benefits other women and that builds community. And I feel like those are all things that we can just never get enough of in my world. And I know the women that are going to listen to this episode and are listening to this episode right now are just going to get so much out of our conversation. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, Carrie Ann. I really love your podcast. I've been listening and it's when you meet someone and you're like, "Oh, we could probably talk all day, right? We have so much in common."
Yeah.
And just very, very safe and comfortable.
Mm,
Yeah, like I feel like I already know you, even though this is the first time we've actually spoken.
right. There's been a virtual knowing that's been very,
Yeah.
yes. And I've done a lot of research about you for this episode, and I feel the same way. We're kindred spirits for sure.
Oh.
So I'd love to start off our conversation today by asking what is feeling so nourishing for you? And this could be mentally, physically, spiritually, energetically, relationally, just like those things that are feeling so good in your life and your just your experience of your life right now.
Yeah, I meet a lot of people. I'm online a lot and I really I'll talk to anybody. I've always been that way. Um, but I feel like I've really gotten a lot more clarity around what I'm putting my energy into and making sure that I'm putting my energy into meeting people and talking and spending time with people that have that same kind of um, maybe yoga or spiritual, that background of like, why am I here? Not just, make a lot of money and get a bunch of stuff or I mean, I don't know. I want to have a purposeful life and
Mm,
I feel like I've really stepped into that leadership position with other women and I mean not that I have everything figured out. I don't, but I do know a lot about how to keep going in a way that is nourishing for yourself and for others like that little song, This Little Light of Mine.
mm,
I sing that song to myself just to remind myself that we're both doing like look at our credentials, right? We
mhm.
have very similar credentials, we have a similar background. But what you can offer and what you do with your following and the people that you're leading, it's a little different than what I do. And
Mhm.
it's not that one is better than the others, right? It's apples to oranges. So I think that's really what's been nourishing for me lately is stepping into that like acceptance that what I have to offer is special and different and important. And there's going to be certain people that really need that. And the other people can go find what they need somewhere else. And I don't have to sweat it, right? It's not for you. It's not for you. And that's very liberating, I think, and gives you the opportunity to not sweat the small stuff as much.
Yeah. So I'm hearing as you reflect that to me, like depth, like you're looking for depth in relationships. You're looking for more relationships where you can not just have like surface level small talk or just pursue the same consumer driven ideas. Like you
Mhm.
can really get into purpose and meaning, but also the celebration of your own individuality and your gifts. And then knowing that the right women who need what you have to share and your story and your presence and energy, they are naturally going to feel drawn to you and that that is valid and real and worthy of anybody else's. It's almost like breaking up with comparison and just making room for what is and being like, here's me.
Mhm.
This is me, this is me, this is me, and you don't have to like it and you might love it, and I'm available for all of it.
Yeah, and it's a very different. I was just in the last little, I'm kind of like always learning, right? I'm taking a class or whatever. Right now I'm taking an art therapy class.
Mm.
And I was learning about the comparison, the way that our mind works and the way that we've evolved is to compare because that keeps us safe.
Yeah.
And so we have that just kind of running in the background, and then it's kind of run rampant with social media,
Mhm.
where this, without us even thinking about it, our mind is automatically comparing, oh, oh, she has this or they have that, or, I'm not quite at that same level, or I haven't, whatever it is, achievement X, insert Y here, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that it's all kind of mind stuff. It's not actually the reality.
Mhm.
I mean, there's plenty of people that are, I was just watching something, and this woman was highly educated and found herself in a domestic violence situation. And then the police were not really responsive to that because of her education. They felt that she should have known better, or that she would just know how to handle it once they did their piece. And
Mhm.
she didn't. She needed just as much of the vulnerable victim help that anybody else would, because just because math and science, it certainly doesn't make you able to deal with a domestic violence situation. And unfortunately, our mind says only certain people find themselves in that situation.
Mhm.
But I was in that situation. And, at that time, I wasn't highly educated, but I've always been smart. And I had no idea. I had no idea what to do. I had to have intervention. I needed a professional. And in my case, it was a nurse that said, you have to go to the women's shelter and you
Mm.
have to get out of this, because it just is going to get worse. And she was right. I really, I mean, I don't know that if it was going to get worse because I left, right?
Right. I mean, evidence would tell us on all accounts that that nurse was a godsend, right? To say that to you, the fact that you could hear it and actually follow through with it also is something that a lot of women find that even if they're in that position and they have that person say that to them, they can't even absorb it. So I'm so delighted in your story that you could absorb it and that you could get into a women's shelter. I see women all the time in our community trying to get out of domestic violence situations, and they can't even get a spot in the shelter.
I was lucky and unlucky. It was just before Christmas. So a
Mm,
lot of people in that situation just before Christmas will grin and bear it,
yeah.
get through the holiday.
Hmm.
But I had a medical appointment and I started crying in front of the doctor, but the nurse was there. And so she pulled me aside afterwards and took me into a little room and gave me a phone and a phone book and said, call the women's shelter, don't stay. I stayed and had 5 children until I had a broken collarbone. You can leave now. I
Mm.
was 20,
Or you have a
22,
couple.
right? Yeah, you can leave now. And so I called and they were like, yeah, you can come to the women's shelter.
Oh my
We'll
goodness.
send you a cab. And so they did. They sent me a cab, and I mean, I am friendly with that partner. We had a child together, so we had to co-parent.
Mhm.
And I'm incredibly blessed in so many ways. And I look back at that thinking that that person was an angel for me at that time,
Mhm. Yeah.
because I needed an expert, and someone to intervene, right? Someone with the clear eyes of, this situation is not for you and you don't deserve it and you can get out.
Mhm.
And then being in Canada and the time of year and everything, I got a spot and they just helped me. The government helped me. They were like, you don't want to stay? You don't have to stay. We'll help you. Was it the lap of luxury? No, but it got me out, and my high school finished, and then eventually a jazz diploma and a music uh BA in arts from the university, and then eventually the yoga teacher, and then the yoga therapy, and then psychology. And like, I love learning. Some of my friends are like, what are you doing? You're just constantly. But life is not, my parents were really alternative thinking, and they were like, life is you're in the university of life. What are
Mm-hmm.
you going to do with it?
Yeah. It seems like for you, that ability to learn is almost like a form of freedom. Like I can exercise my capacity to learn. I can lean in. I can have new information. I can have, like, I think for some people, that in particular feels really liberating as well. And like confidence building, like I know all these things.
Yeah, and the more you learn, the more you understand, you start to make all these connections, right? I have a minor in anthropology and I've studied psychology, and you can see how these worlds intersect, right? And yoga
Yes.
does not live in a vacuum.
Hmm.
It's everywhere in its own way. Like I had recently had a client who didn't want to do yoga, so I found other ways to get her to do yoga. I just didn't call it yoga, right? Because
Sure.
it's
Well,
just
yoga
the
is so
stretching and the
vast.
moving. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It does not have to look like asana practice on a mat or like any of the things that we conventionally think a yoga practice can be. And that's part of what I know you and I both probably are drawn to the yoga therapy field. I know for me personally, I feel so drawn to the yoga therapy field because it is a highly creative field and there's so much room to meet an individual and say, "Hi, what do you need? What do you want? What are your goals? What have you experienced?" Okay. This is not a one size fits all system. And I love that about yoga therapy. And I've needed that in my own trauma recovery journey. And it sounds like you've really needed that too. And then we also see that affirmed constantly in clients, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it's really I took one of my girlfriends out for coffee once. And she was like, "Oh, telling me a story about something." And I was like, "I know why we always get along because we have the same boyfriend. Like, I consider yoga like a boyfriend, and we have the same, you know what I mean? Like, it's a certain kind of mentality and way of looking at the world as far as the holistic view of things, right? And
Mm.
really being aware of, okay, so on the mat, so off the mat. When you're being hypercritical, you become really aware of that after a while, and you can go into that place of observing and being like, oh, am I being fair to myself about
Mhm.
that? Is my expectation unrealistic? Do I need to adjust something? Like I feel like with restorative, there's a lot of like propping up, right? Oh, you need a pillow under here. You need a little mat over there. We need a little bit more support or a towel under your knees or whatever it is. And the more you do that, or I feel the more I have done that, the more I've started to do that in my life where it's like, oh, I need a sweater. Like, have
Mm.
you heard that one? There's a Buddhist saying of, the disciple goes to the master and says, "Well, I went up on the mountain and I tried to meditate, but I couldn't do it." And the master is like, "What's wrong? Well, what happened?" "Well, I got up there and I was really cold. I
Mm.
was really cold and I couldn't focus." And the master says, "Well, wear a blanket."
Become warm. Yeah.
You know, I was too hungry to focus. Well, eat something,
Right.
like don't forget to have some water, right? Like
Yeah.
and getting back into those basics of like, okay, something's not right. What is it? And just having a glass of water and taking a moment to be like, do my feet hurt? Like, do I need to put my feet up? Like sometimes it's a lot of the time you can bring a little bit of comfort to the body
Hmm.
and then the mind will settle.
Yeah. And I also think, I mean, I know you and I both relate to experiencing childhood trauma and teenage trauma and romantic partnership trauma just based on the limited conversations that we've had. And I think that the reality that so many women who haven't seen that bigger holistic picture and felt the things that we felt, they don't understand that the reason they are the way that they are is because of how trauma has influenced the way that they think, feel, move through their lives, relate to their bodies, think about what choices and options they have. Like it's this I always call it like I need glasses, right, to see well. And it's like it's the lens that we see everything through. And in the yoga tradition, we have the word drishti, and it's like the perspective that we have. And so unless you've done recovery work around trauma, unless you've done healing work around trauma, unless you've done yoga practice, in my limited opinion, and granted, y'all, I'm biased as hell because I'm a yoga therapist, but unless you've done those things, you don't see those layers, right? And as we untangle from trauma, and start to see ourselves as something that we can be curious about and we can ask questions about like am I actually cold right now because I see a lot of women and I spend a lot of time on this in my practice where they'll just kind of settle for okay in restorative
Mhm.
and I'm like girl no you're not comfortable I can see that you're not comfortable. Let's add that blanket. Do you want your socks on? Like what can we do? Are you under the air vent and you hate it? Do you need to pee? Go take care of these things, right? Because we have time and trauma brain is like, you can't do those things. Or even like, I don't even know to ask myself those things, right?
I had one yoga class when I was finishing my practicum for the Mount Royal program, and I was co-teaching with one of my favorite teachers who's my mentor. I was really grateful. His name's Ray Hawkins. He's a great guy.
Mm.
And I was just half the time teaching and half the time observing, right? Sharing. And I was watching one of the participants who was really uncomfortable, right? Like I could just see it from across the room.
Yeah.
And they were all, laying on their back doing Shavasana at the end. And I was like, she just needs like 2 inches on that left hip,
Hmm.
and then her whole spine would relax. So, when there was a beat and I had a moment before she got up, I went over to her and I was like, let's just put a little, I just want to try this and put a little support under that hip. And she was like, how did you know? How did you know? And I was like, well, I could just see that the hip was a little high and I could feel that you were really uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Yes, it's a class and you don't want to be disruptive and you don't want to stand out, but that whole wall was props,
Hmm.
pillows, blankets, bolsters, wedgies, like all anything you want. I was like, don't hesitate to just go over and, or even for you when you're practicing, have a little towel because you don't need a lot. You just need a little bit of a lift and everything will even out after that.
Hmm.
And, that was one of the turning points where I was like, yeah, I really want to work with people one on one, so that I can do that and not be like trying to find a moment, in a class setting when we had like 30 people in a big room, and
Yeah.
also trying to do it in a way that I wasn't making her feel like she was doing something wrong. Teacher is correcting her. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
the programming in our head can be so bad that way that even if we were really uncomfortable, we wouldn't say in a group setting, I can't use my left hand that way, or my right leg doesn't go. Is there a modification?
Yeah.
So I really feel like in the yoga therapy land, where so much of it was, how can we modify this and make it accessible?
Hmm.
How can we change this a little bit? That's kind of been like
Yeah.
yeah, the real meat and potatoes of it for me was like, you can make anything more accessible if you help yourself through it, however it is you need to do that. If it is like putting on a sweater. So I'm always in layers because of perimenopause.
Right. You don't know what you're going to need temperature wise.
Yeah. That way I don't have to worry about it. But I work from home and I'm doing yoga therapy and teaching music. So if I have to take off my sweater, no one, nobody cares.
Nobody will mind. Absolutely. And I feel like part of this, just in terms of like yoga philosophy and yoga history, which I know my listeners, y'all don't know a bunch about that unless you've done training. But there was periods of yoga history where it was all about asceticism and austerities and deprivation and then like we've had other periods in the yoga history where like I really love like tantric influence over yoga's evolution and how we actually recognize like feminine aspects of divinity and householder practitioners of yoga. And we started to look more at like the body as a temple rather than this thing to be deprived and ignored. And I think that sometimes like trauma brain mirrors some of that historical context of like, I have to endure it. I just have to sit here and get through this pose versus like the yoga therapy mindset of like, you're actually meant to enjoy this, just so you know. And we can get that blanket or roll up a towel, or we can do this, or you can just be like, fuck this yoga pose. Like, I want a different yoga pose. Like, this is just not really resonating with me. I need something different. Like we have so much more freedom now, and I really love for my women that are listening that are practicing with me, please just remember that we're aiming for pleasure,
Hmm.
aiming for enjoyment. And yes, do we do hard things? Do we do uncomfortable things? Yes. But that doesn't mean we're doing it from this lens of like, I have to change myself. I have to fit into a box. I have to be different than I am. It's more just like we're strong and we can do hard things, and doing hard things that challenge us feels good, right?
It feels great when you actually do that, the chair pose or something, right? Where you're like, oh God, please help. When is it over? And then you actually did it
Uh,
and you held that for a while and you feel really strong. I remember one of my very first yoga therapy clients, She was going through a lot of trauma with a divorce, with a very narcissistic, and I usually don't throw that word around, but this particular person
Hmm.
was so obviously narcissistic. Like I've never had anyone insult one of my students during a student recital, and this man did that to his wife in front of everybody at a student music recital. And I corrected him quite quickly with the help of my husband.
Yeah.
But um, regardless, she was just going through this, you can't get away from them because they have these kids. He has access to her, so she's just constantly being bombarded with, abusive language. And she wanted to move. She wanted to keep moving and keep moving and keep moving. And I kept saying, we need to work more, like let's get the heating pad. Let's get the heating pad on your low back. Let's get you laying down. Let's get you laying on your side. Let's try to find a place of comfort. And it took quite a while for her. I think part of what happens is when you have that level of like feeling bombarded, like the nervous system is just bombarded with stimulation that's negative. And then, someone says, okay, well, let's lay down and have a nice, relaxing. It's too hard, right? Because you've just been moving and moving.
That
Your
was
body
too
wants
big.
to move.
Yeah.
Body wants to move. You want to move, like get away from this. I want to keep moving it, keep moving, keep moving. And that does generate more exhaustion over time. So after a while, she kind of got what we were getting at, and we would do one side and then the other side and the back and the front. And, it was very relaxing. But, that's one thing that I would say, right? If you are using yoga as a medicine to keep you in a terrible situation, that's not what it's for, right? I like as much as you can. Sometimes you can't completely get out, but there are ways that you can like, detach, right? That's how I ended up staying in relationship with the father of my oldest child, was by eventually realizing, all of that behavior has nothing to do with me. He would have been behaving that way no matter who he was with. I don't have to take any of that personally. So when it comes at me, even though I'm not enjoying it, and I would prefer if that didn't happen, I can just look at it and go, you know what? That's not about me,
Hmm.
about you. We need to deal with this XYZ kid has an ear infection and he needs his medicine 3 times a day or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Let's just deal with the facts and the emotional side of things. I can detach from that. So I'm hoping that she got there. I don't really know where she's at with any of that now, but that is ultimately, I think we were talking about freedom, right? The freedom that yoga provides, that's part of it, is where you get to observe yourself enough times and be like, this is so upsetting, and I'm upsetting myself about it now because I won't let it go and I keep thinking about it and I can't do anything about it. And I'm taking it personally, like it's about me that this is happening.
Hmm.
Whereas, like I said before, anybody can end up in a domestic violence situation.
Yeah.
It's not about you, it's about them.
Right. And it happens in such nuanced ways that women enter into a situation like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
It's so easy to say like, oh, I could never do that or that would never happen to me. But the reality is the number one sign of abuse is confusion.
Hmm.
And so I think people don't realize unless they've experienced that or like know a lot about that topic, that it really is just a very confusing experience for the woman in it. And then she's in too deep to know to like understand how she got there. At that point, it's like, oh my gosh, this is really bad.
It has to get bad before you realize what to do. But that's the one thing that I would just say, if you are using yoga as a medicine, make sure that you're using it as a medicine towards a better life and not a medicine towards putting up with something that's really not,
Yes,
not to your benefit, right? Like the
right.
relationship that you and I both ended up having, a very impactful romantic relationship. And I was 14, I believe you were 14 as well.
Yeah,
And that really changed how I felt about myself. And I felt very like I wasn't really confused, but I felt like I had no power. I felt like I had no control over the situation or over my body or over what was happening, or I didn't feel like I had the ability to say no.
right.
I just wasn't mature enough. I didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And when you're being manipulated, your whole like your brain doesn't understand those things because somebody's been grooming you and manipulating you to not understand. So it's like developmentally, but also psychologically, you've been prepped for that. And so it becomes a really tangled web that then, I mean, like I have spent decades learning how to enjoy sex and stay in my body in sex and exercise agency around it. And I'll admit I'm in a really freaking awesome place with it
Yay.
now, which is so great. And I say that not to brag, but just to be like, I am proud of myself because when sex starts before you have agency, or when sex starts before it's your relationship with yourself. And like I came from a Southern Baptist tradition, which I don't know. Do you know much about that? I don't know if that's outside of the US, probably not.
No, but my grandmother was a Baptist and she was the daughter of a minister. So there was some of that. And I think that might be partially why my dad was so forward thinking. I think he was a jazz musician. He was an ultimate rebel. And
Uh,
he was always like, I remember talking to him about church, and he was like, I don't think you should decide if you want to go to church until you're a grown lady. I think while you're a kid, you should go to church with everybody, anybody. Learn all you can about church, and then decide which kind or what you want to do if you want to do that. But you don't have to. You don't have to do anything, but you should read a book.
and he wanted you to experience variety so then you could choose,
Yeah. He
right?
was like, I'll talk to you about the Bible, but read the whole Bible and then we'll talk. So I did.
I love that about dad, about him really encouraging choice and agency, which is the opposite of my experience of spirituality growing up, where it was like fit into this box or you're not, you know,
Were you
like,
going to go to hell if you didn't
oh,
do everything?
eternal damnation, like
Yeah.
for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
And also like you will be judged and shamed by our family. And I say that with laughter because it's just, you kind of have to laugh. Like it was not funny. It was deeply painful and really bad for my mental health. And I'm not discounting that part of my story, but also me now knowing everything I know now, I'm like, gosh, that was so bad. You almost have to just laugh at it because what a, just what a traumatic start.
Yeah, and I think a lot of women find themselves in that situation where they feel like they have to pick either themselves, what
Mhm.
they want, what's best for them,
Yeah.
or what the family and the people around them want. And
Yep.
that there's no real acceptance of who they are or what they want or what's best for them.
Yeah.
Because, you have to admit sometimes what's best for mom isn't what's best for everybody in the moment because
Right.
mom needs a bubble bath and everybody else wants dinner.
Yeah.
But, if there's someone else in the house or the kids are at a certain age, everybody can have cereal until you're done your bath and it's not the end of the world. You'll figure something else out. You know what I mean? But we're so programmed to meet the needs of other people. And I think that was part of what happened for me with that, too early relationship.
Yeah.
Uh, that I was really primed to be funny and smart and available and make other people comfortable and do what's best for them and put whatever I wanted or needed on the back burner. And I didn't really come into understanding, that's been an unfolding of like when I choose myself, I do choose my family. They may not like what I'm doing right now because it makes them uncomfortable, it puts them in a weird position, or they have to take care of themselves.
Right.
Nobody likes that when mommy's been stepping in.
Mm,
Um, but I feel like that is the step to liberation. And I myself am in a similar situation where I don't even know. I was talking to my friend the other day. I don't know how this happened, but when I was in that with that man,
hmm
who's my friend-ish now, uh, I was like, there's something better for me. This is not for me. There's something better for me. And I would just knew it down deep in my core. And I got in and out of relationships really quickly. And all my friends were like, you're crazy. And I was like, no, it's not right. There's something about this that isn't right. And especially the last one that I left, on paper, everything looked great. He had a job, he was paying the rent, the kids were fed, everybody was fine. But he was emotionally just like Elvis has left the building.
mm,
And I just felt like the wilting flower.
yeah.
And I was doing the best I could to still meet my own needs and take care of the kids and get the things done and try to connect with this person. But, the ultimately I came to that place where it's like, this isn't for me. There's something better for me. There's a great place with a great person where I'm totally able to be myself and they like it, even when it makes them uncomfortable. They
Yeah.
like it because they like me and they want what's best for me because they love me, not what I can do for them. And
Mm.
I turfed that relationship and I lost all my friends and it was really painful. And but where am I now? I'm in a nice house in a nice neighborhood in a nice city with a nice man who's upstairs working his work from home job, who loves me even when I make him uncomfortable because I love him when he makes me uncomfortable. I love him for who he is. And how did I know that? I don't know. But I caught myself in the kitchen the other day saying, okay, 21-year-old Jessica, this isn't for you. There's something better for you. Keep believing. And I was like, oh my God, was I sending myself psychic messages to the past? Don't put up with bull. Get out of that. No
Yeah.
one understood. And I didn't either. I was like, I just have to get out of this. I can't do this anymore.
Hmm.
So if you have those instincts, right?
Yeah,
Follow them.
absolutely. And if you don't have those instincts, because I did not have those instincts, I did not think that there was something better for me when I was in that relationship. I thought that was that was like the top of the pyramid, that like this person was that. And so I want to just highlight that range of like you knowing inside you all along that there was something better. And then somebody like me being like, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, and trying to hold on tight, even when it was toxic and eating me alive, right?
Yeah, I did that too.
Yeah.
I think it's a progression of, and maybe an awareness, right? Like if it's not working, then you have to do something different, even if it's really uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and have that faith that there is a person out there that will love you. But I also think, now I'm not saying that I didn't have appreciation for myself, but I don't think I really loved myself when I was in that relationship, right?
Yeah.
That's partially why I was tolerating that kind of behavior.
Hmm.
Even though I don't think that I said to myself, oh, I deserve to be treated badly.
Right.
I think that I was, it was familiar enough in some way to be
Hmm.
treated poorly. And that was a turning point for me when I did a lot of group therapy
Yeah.
and individual therapy. And someone said that, they're treating you in the way that you ultimately feel is okay because that's the level of what you're willing to accept. And when you get to a place where you're not willing to accept that, then the behavior will either change or you just won't be able to tolerate the relationship. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's where your responsibility comes, but it's not being responsible for how they're treating you. And it's a
Right.
very important distinction, right? Because you can't stop someone else from treating you poorly or help them wake up or anything like
Not our
that.
job. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Our job is to really, and I love karma yoga for this because it really enables us to see our own role in the mix of things and not from a judgmental place. Like I think when people talk about karma in the mainstream, it's like, oh, they're going to get what's
Punishment.
coming to them. But
Yeah.
our listeners, that's not what karma yoga is.
No.
That's not the point of it. It's this understanding that we're here to grow and evolve and we're here to learn and that like this field that we're playing in is not just physical. It's not just this material stuff that we can see. There's this whole energetic and unseen that we're relating to. And so in any moment, there's infinite capacity and possibility. And if you can create that relationship, I'm thinking of one of my clients right now who's leaving a very toxic relationship where she's co-parenting and still just in that like
Best wishes for her.
bombardment state
Yeah.
where she's separated, but she's still being bombarded by this stuff
Yeah.
sometimes, not nearly as much. But it's like part of what I'm working with her on is this vision of what she wants to create. And it's really emotional for her because it's like untangling from what you've believed was okay for you to accept because of where you are, and then having someone say, but what do you want? But what do you want? But what do you really want? What does good love feel like? What does that nice man upstairs that you are married to and my handsome chef, like, how do we get to that? And I think part of it is that seed of I know there's better for me out there, and I'm going to keep walking towards that path and really owning that sense of power of what is mine to take on and what is not, and what I will accept and what I won't over and over again, which is not easy work, but also, gosh, it's worth it.
Yeah, and I think that I think that each woman or person really, right? Because not just women end up in this kind of situation,
Yeah.
but when you own your own situation, your own life, right? Tara Brock talks about that. I've been studying with her for the last year.
Hmm.
She does a weekly class and I signed up for it and it's been life-changing, you guys. Like she's great meditation.
Yeah.
But she said, so you find yourself in this situation, right? And then you take 100% responsibility for your experience. When you do that, it takes that whole, well, he's a jerk or he's a whatever, right? Like, let's focus on what's wrong with this other person. When you take that 100% responsibility, you do start to say things like, well, why am I here? What am I doing? Why
Hmm.
am I tolerating that? I wouldn't, leave my sister in that situation and not say anything or my best friend.
Yeah.
Why am I, just shutting down and walking away in this situation? Like, what is it that I can do differently when I take that 100% responsibility? I don't know about you, but one of the things that really helped me was connecting with my inner child and then seeing that what my inner child is doing is trying to connect with this person
Hmm.
and they're just checked out for whatever is going on, right? At this point, they're checked out. And then me taking that personally and shutting down. And then now we are not connecting at all.
Yeah.
When I take that 100% responsibility for how I'm feeling, I can say, tap, tap, tap. I'm just trying to connect with you.
Hmm.
I'm just trying to connect. Is that something that is of interest to you?
Yeah.
Like,
We're
because
available
maybe
for
they
that
don't
right
want,
now.
yeah, maybe they don't want to, right? With
Uh-huh.
my husband, he gets easily overwhelmed because I'm very emotional. I'm really passionate. I talk a lot. I love talking and listening is good, but I love talking. And he's a listener, which you'd think is great, but sometimes his ears get tired. And we've had to learn that, right? Where he says, I love you. I'm interested. I want what's best for you. And I'm highly invested and I cannot listen to you anymore right
Yeah.
now. And then have me go, oh, I'm 100% responsibility for myself here.
Hmm.
Um, he's not telling me he doesn't care. He's not telling me that he doesn't want to listen to me. He's not telling me he's not interested in what I'm saying. He's
Hmm.
telling me not now.
Right. That he's reached a threshold where he's not able to give anymore. And that doesn't have to be about you. And I think that's an important part of really just an evolution, like a maturity that comes whenever you do trauma recovery, whenever you do healing work, whenever you take radical responsibility. And granted, I do want to discern we live in a culture there what that has many systemic issues that contribute to these issues for women. Like this is not an individual problem. We have systemic problems that lead women down these paths. And I want to name that because I hate the whole hyper individuation movement in the feminist world. It's really keeping women feeling like there's too much shame to even take action, right? So I recognize the systemic issues that are there, but also the individual power that each of us hold. And then as you do grow, as you do learn how to stay with yourself and not abandon yourself and tend to that inner child, I do a lot of parts work with my clients, but not like traditional internal family systems, like my own, I call it intuitive parts work, but kind of inspired by that.
Oh, that's fun. I love it.
It's so fun. And it's just like it's like, oh, I can just work on that part because that part has needs and wants, and I know how to be with her rather than I have to abandon a part of myself in order to feel okay in this moment, which kind of circles all the way back to that yoga experience of are we using yoga for our evolution and growth and our full awakening and aliveness and our connection to God or goddess, however you want to define it? Or are we using it just as like a regulation tool to calm us down? And frankly, I'm not interested in calming women down.
Well, I mean, sometimes you have to get upset. Like I
Mhm.
had to be at that moment where I was like, I can't stand this anymore.
No more, right?
I just can't stand it anymore, and it's not that I don't love this guy and I have this kid and I want to try and be co-parents and then I spent, over 20 years trying to convince him that we could be friendly, that
Mm,
we were still family even though we were divorced.
yeah.
But, my father passed away 2 years ago.
Mm,
And guess who has been one of the most sympathetic and understanding and supportive people in my life? The
yeah.
guy that I left when I was 22.
Mm,
Right? That's another thing that you learn when you have the experiences with people and you let them unfold and evolve with you and around you and don't put them in like he is the abuser and I am the survivor.
hmm
we had a dynamic together. That's one of the things that really bothers me about, they're toxic. It's like, well, no, the situation together was toxic, right? He
Yeah.
was he was willing to behave in a certain way that shut me down, and I was willing to just let myself be shut down.
Hmm.
Something had to change, and then it was me ultimately that broke that. It could have been him who broke the pattern. He
Yeah.
wasn't there at the same time. I was like, I'm done. But ultimately, I did him a favor. I was like, we weren't happy together. You deserve to be happy. I want you to be happy. I want to be happy. Let's move on and stay together in this different way. And, for a long time, it was really hard for him to accept that. But, that you can break up and still see someone regularly and not have to fight with them about anything. I was like, I divorced you so we never have to fight again. We don't have to fight about anything ever.
Right?
I'm
You
just
could
gonna let
feel
you know school gets out at 3:30. Can you pick him up on Thursday? Like,
yes or no questions, please. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes or no answers, I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, the person's not toxic. The situation is toxic. The relationship is toxic. The way that the two people are in it is toxic. And one of them can decide, and either one of them can decide. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And you don't have to never talk to that person again. In fact, I don't think that that's really advisable to just say, I'm never going to talk to that person again, unless you absolutely have to. But I also think, tell me what you think about testimony. Testimony in the church, right? You get up and you testify.
Mhm.
Testimony in the courtroom, you confront your abuser. I think that we're skipping some of this important stuff about testifying, which is part of what I think I'm doing when I come on to podcasts and talk about menopause in an open way and talk about yoga in an open way and talk about trauma in an open way in a non-blaming, non-confront. Like I'm not saying, all this stuff happened to me. Let's count the ways that I was abused and here I am a victim. No, this is just I don't know anybody who had an easy life. Do you?
No.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly there are spectrums of more complex situations and less complex situations, and I don't discount that because I do work really up close with women's trauma recovery, and I can tell you that some of them are much less complex than others, right? Just frankly. But also, it doesn't matter because there's big T trauma and there's little T trauma, and nobody moves through life and doesn't experience trauma and hardship and suffering. And so even if somebody has more complex situation versus less, they can still have the same intensity of impact. And
Or
so,
maybe even more confusion too, right? Like I remember talking to the man that I'm married to now,
mhm,
um, about his childhood, and he said something really profound. And this is when we were just starting to get to know each other, where he said, everybody, including myself, thought that we had a perfect family because dad worked hard and then mom worked hard and then we had the nice house and private school and everybody I was, he never went to school without lunch, right? He always had 3 meals a day. And parents were always there and education was the best. And he said it was really hard. It's hard to come to terms to the fact that there was emotional abuse and there was some neglect going on because a lot of the emotional needs just weren't even like, I remember talking to him about emotional needs when we were first getting to know each other. And he was like, I don't know, like, do I
mhm.
have that?
Yeah,
Yeah, you do.
absolutely. Right. Trauma
Everybody
doesn't
does.
have to look like not having food to eat. Trauma can also be like, I didn't get emotional support or I didn't get time with people. Like maybe my parents worked all the time and I was
Yeah.
left completely alone. Like trauma can look like that
Or
too.
even just feeling alone, right? Like his, he talked about, when they were home, he ran upstairs one time and was like, let's have pancakes. And they were like, well, you can read now, so go make yourself pancakes, which he did. And it contributed, there's like good and bad and everything. He became a very independent person. He knew how to take care of himself. He had no problem making a meal and reading a recipe and dealing with the kitchen. That's great. But on the other hand, nobody hung out with him in the kitchen and made pancakes. And once I realized that, that the kitchen became a lonely place for him, we
Mm.
named it. It was a lonely place for me too. And I said, why don't we approach it differently so that it's not you cooking or me cooking, but both of us are contributing in whatever way, even if it's just a conversation about what we're going to have.
Yeah.
Then we feel like we're in a team together and we're doing this thing together. And it honestly, that one thing changed everything. But, unpacking all of that, it takes that time and energy and attention and, the ability to hear what they're saying and not say, well, I went to school hungry. so my life was much worse. But on the other hand, my parents, if I ran to them with anything ever, they were the kind of people that would be like, "Oh, I'll put the book down. I'm listening to what the child has to say. I'm curious and interested in what's going on for her. I'm going to talk to her." Well, my dad would talk to me about the Greeks, and my mom would talk to me about, basically yoga philosophy. She didn't call it that, but that's what they were doing.
Mhm.
And they trained me to be a problem solver. And I became very independent. And so that was my issue as far as like I want someone to be there for me. But in order to do that, I have to be honest about what I need and what I want and allow that person to be there for me. And not the way that I want them, the way that they are.
Yeah, accepting them for who they are as well is
Yeah.
important. So I'm curious, how did you get into yoga? When did it become a part of your life officially?
Well, I was conceived in a Maharishi yoga meditation retreat.
Okay.
So meditation was part of my parents' like coping skills. I
Mhm.
have one of my first young memories was they were going to meditate. They were having a fight, and my mother said to my father, "We haven't meditated together today." And
Mm.
they went upstairs to meditate, and I followed them, and I said, "Can I meditate?" And they were like, "Oh, sure. It's we're gonna sit and be quiet. It might be hard for you." So I sat between them, and I, obviously didn't know how to meditate or anything, but I sat there quietly and I just paid attention to what was happening between them. And I sensed everything softening and grounding and becoming more calm.
Mm.
And then eventually I was like, okay, that's enough. And they were like, okay, great job. And off I ran. And, it was one of those things where it was always coming back to yoga and coming this invitations. And if I forgot about it for a while, someone would hand me a book, the Paramahansa Yogananda autobiography of a yogi. I don't know how many times I have given that book away. And then someone the next day or 2 days later, or I'll find another copy of it in my house until I was like, okay, Paramahansa Yogananda, you're probably my guru and you belong in my house. So I'm going to keep the book.
Mm.
Uh, but like when I was a young mom and I was feeling really uncomfortable with the second child because I was in this, what would you call it? Like a vacuum, an emotional vacuum relationship where he just sucked everything out of me and I didn't get anything back. I
Mm.
shouldn't say I didn't get anything back. He was not meeting my needs.
Yeah.
And so someone gave me a yoga book and I got really into it, reading it. It was a lot about philosophy and a little bit about postures. So I started doing a little bit then. And then that was maybe partially why I decided to get out. And I started listening to myself a little bit more.
Mm.
And another friend of mine got really into yoga teacher training and she was like, "You have to do yoga." And she started just handing me DVDs and was like, "Just try it. Just check this out and check this out and check out this teacher and check. And I think you should probably become a yoga teacher." And I was like, "I already have a career, right? I'm already a musician and I'm already gig hustling and I'm already trying to get clients and I'm already teaching and I'm already doing a thing that's not, what would you call that, right? Like it's not structured. It's not a job. It's a career and it's self-employment and it's not steady. Um, but it just kept coming back and kept coming back. And then eventually my first grandchild was born and I fell down and I broke my elbow. And
Mm.
when you break an elbow, they say you have to keep moving the joint, right? We're not going to cast it. You have to keep using it. Use it, but not too much. And I was like, that's infuriating advice. Use it, but not too much. How
Yeah.
am I supposed to know what that is? So I started getting into watching more yoga videos online because by that time it was like 10 years ago and yoga with Adrienne. I was
Mm.
drawn to her and I loved her very simple way of doing things.
Yeah.
And I just started naturally modifying. So whatever I was doing, I would do it on both sides, but I would do it less or I would modify how I was doing it on the left side. And it came back really strong. It's like I've always wanted to do yoga teacher training, but I never did because it was you know, another career that I maybe can't turn into making a living. And
Mm.
I was like, I've never let that stop me before. I've just
Right.
done the training and of the interest. And it was really strange. Like I'd done all this meditation training as well under a woman who was under Paramahansa Yogananda's nephew, I believe. That's how I found him. So I'd been doing a lot of sitting and meditating. And I was working out at the gym and I had broken my elbow. And the personal trainers, they live in a different world. than like average person because they firmly believe you can do anything. You want to lift 120 pounds?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to do it today, but
Yeah.
we're going to work up to that. You can do that. I
Right.
will help you to do that. You can do anything you put your mind to. So I confided in my personal trainer that I'd always wanted to do yoga teacher training. And she said, "You're stronger than you think." And I came up with all the things that people come up with. Right? I'm not stretchy. I'm not flexible. I'm not coordinated at all. I'm not an exercise person. I only exercise because I like the results. And then one of my clients came to mind. You need to talk to so and so about yoga teacher training. So I
Mm.
sent her a message and I said, "Can you meet for coffee?" And we did. And I said, "Okay, I know this sounds weird, but do you believe in angels and, intuition and guidance? Because I was told to ask you, and I know you're not a yoga teacher,
Mm-hmm.
but what do you know about yoga teacher trainings? Because I'm supposed to ask you about this." And she was like, "Oh yeah, go downtown, do it at Yoga Passage. You can do it in the summer. It won't conflict with your teaching because I can't do regular
Mm-hmm.
teaching because I'm always teaching when other people are off work."
Yes.
So a lot of the yoga teacher trainings, the hours, I just wasn't able to do it. So I called the studio and went in and I still go there. I'm still connected with Yoga Passage and that's where I met the one of the teachers from the yoga therapy program and was like, I want what he has because he is so secure in himself. He knows what he's good at, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of followed my nose and ended up like right after yoga teacher training. I think we finished in August and then I started in September at Mount Royal in the yoga therapy program.
Mm. Oh, that's a quick turnaround to go.
Yeah, so it's
You just went straight up the education ladder with yoga.
yeah, it's kind of like how I've done everything. I'm impulsive, I'm decisive, and I just go for it. And
Mhm.
I was in over my head for sure. But I loved it. I made so many great friends. And then once I graduated, it was like pick a niche, pick a niche, pick a niche.
Mm-hmm.
I was in perimenopause and it was like, man, we need some help when we're heading towards menopause and things start to fall apart, especially when we're still having a regular period and the doctors don't believe you that
Mm-hmm.
it's perimenopause. And all of the yoga stuff, they've really shown in so many medical studies that it does, especially yoga nidra, exactly what we need. It regulates your cortisol so you're not having the huge highs and lows. It brings up the happy hormones in your brain. It helps to relax the whole system. And beyond that, just on a spiritual level, it helps you to experience your body
Mm-hmm.
as separate from your consciousness because your body is asleep, but your consciousness is awake. So if that's possible, I'm not my body.
Right.
I can't be my body if I'm fully awake, yet I know my body is asleep. So yeah, that's been I can't imagine my life without those things, music and yoga. People are like, well, they're not related at all. Really? They're a practice. You do it in the
Everything is
moment.
yoga. Yeah.
Yeah, like come
So,
on.
for our listeners that don't know what yoga nidra is, can you explain what it is to them?
Yeah, really simple. It's the sleep of the yogis.
Hmm.
So instead of a physical practice, you lay down and get comfy. And there are so many different audios that you can listen to. I did my training with Ali Boothroyd. I love her. She's great. She's out of Ontario. And she's got some really great teachers that are working with her. I love all of their stuff too. Kristen Rose is really great. She's on Insight Timer, as is Ali. And I think what I like the most about it is because I've had a really active, busy brain, right? I'm very imaginative. I'm always up in my head creating ideas and writing songs and whatever else. It's a mind practice. So you just listen along. You're just following along. And if you fall asleep, you fall asleep, and that's fine. Probably your body needed it. You try to stay awake and listen while you're practicing. And eventually you come to that place of really understanding, oh, I am in my body. I am not of my body. I
Right.
am, and it's not a puppet. I'm
Hmm.
having an experience. I'm having this human experience. And, you can say that all day and people don't get it. But when you actually experience with a really experienced teacher, that level of understanding your own consciousness, it changes how you treat your body from like, you start to realize that this is the vehicle that you're having the experience in. And so, skipping lunch isn't just skipping lunch. You're punishing yourself in some way. You're not taking care of you're not honoring the experience that you're having because you're not meeting the body's needs. And meeting the body's needs, like we were just talking about, right? Putting a pillow under your bum.
Yeah.
That's where the gold is. That's where you're going to really understand, oh, I'm taking care of myself in a loving fashion. I deserve to be taken care of in a loving fashion. And then everything in your whole life can change from this very simple practice. And it's effortless. You don't do anything. You get comfortable. You can lay down, you can sit up. I have one friend who, as soon as she lays down, she passes out. So she always practices yoga nidra sitting up.
Yeah.
And my parents like to practice meditation sitting up with something behind their back. So they would sit with up against the wall, or my brother was a carpenter and he made them these stands so that they could have something to
Wow.
lean on. But yeah, like it's a powerful practice when my brother was an alcoholic and a drug addict and a thief.
Mhm.
Learned a lot of lessons from him.
Yeah.
Uh, and he passed away really suddenly at 55. But so he lived a life that was completely outside of that, but he recognized how much difference it made for mom and dad to be doing their meditation, that
Mhm.
he built them props so that
Mm.
they could meditate comfortably. So they would be more likely to do their meditation like nothing says love like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what a neat story that you grew up with meditation. I feel like a lot of Westerners did not grow up with those practices versus like people who grew up in Eastern traditions might have seen their parents meditating, but you grew up with that. And then it sounds like it just kind of kept coming back over and over
Yeah,
again in different ways. Like even if you personally weren't seeking it out, that yoga was like, here, you need
yeah.
to be.
I'm here. I'm here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then that you've seen just that there's a variety of ways to practice. There's a variety of different practices that give you different things that fulfill different needs. And I think this is something that we as yoga therapists understand very clearly, but the average person who's practicing yoga does not understand. And I kind of wanted to speak to that mindset and then another part too. But first, the mindset. So as a yoga therapist, I feel like you and I both see yoga as this thing with many tools in the tool belt. And I like to call it the mystical tool belt, right? Like it's not just a physical, like, a physical pose. I'm in a nervous system group on Facebook and somebody was like, what is the very best yoga pose to regulate your nervous system? And it's like, okay, no.
Invite me. I want to be.
There is not one yoga pose to regulate your nervous system. It's
No.
this like, collection in the mystical toolbox. And I think we try to oversimplify it. And we also, like in social media, the way it influences the way that we see yoga practice, the same thing, right? Because you'll see somebody say, like, oh, do this particular pose for this particular goal. But this is not what the average yoga therapist is thinking about when they're thinking about this mystical toolbox. They're thinking about needs and what your body and psyche are telling you. And then how do we align with these different tools and grab from this mystical toolbox, which is not about a prescriptive single pose. It's about this whole therapeutic range. And like, what can yoga nidra give a person? And who's going to be challenged by yoga nidra, but really needs yoga nidra? Or restorative yoga, for example. These are tools that I'm not a yoga nidra teacher, but I've done a lot of it. And I feel like as a yoga therapist who specializes in restorative yoga is one of my arenas, I draw from that a lot, like these
Oh,
long
yeah.
guided meditations,
Oh,
even if
yeah.
I'm not officially doing yoga nidra. And I feel like there's just knowing for our listeners that there's different practices that hold different upaya, different remedies that they offer. And that the one that you're most gravitate towards, like if you're a person who's always moving, we were talking about this before we hit record. If you're a person who's always moving and doing, you're going to gravitate towards the yoga practices that keep you moving and doing. But what you actually might need is stillness practices or practices that allow you to feel held. Like to me, restorative yoga is this pose, is this collection of like therapeutic poses, yes, breath work, yes, energy medicine, nervous system medicine, meditation, like all woven together, where you're held.
Hmm.
How many things in life are we just held? Or how many times in life are we just told you can lay down and get as comfortable as you want to get? Then I'm going to take you all the way on a journey through your psyche, through the lens of your soul. Let's just do that, right? Like, how many times do we have that outside of a yoga arena?
Yeah, I think that that's a lot of what has happened with me with the clients that I've worked with, where number one, they need someone to actually listen to them,
Mm,
and so I do a lot of like, what is it, you're telling me it's about this work situation or whatever that's getting you down, but what are the feelings that are underneath that? That's really what the karma stuff is about. That's
mm,
one of the things that was in the Ali Boothroyd training was instead of looking at it like, okay, karma's coming to get you and now you're punished. What are the feelings that you're having when that happens, when, someone's not listening to you? And then how often have you felt that? And when does that come up? And what is that is what's going on inside of you, right? What can you do for yourself? And Tanis Fishman, she was the one of the yoga teacher training teachers at Yoga Passage, and she's really into Nidra. She's
mm.
excellent. And she would say, "Oh, you think yoga nidra is hard? Do it more.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do it." Like, because your body, right? Like my body, I don't feel coordinated or strong, but I actually am very strong, and I have kind of an athletic build, and I can do really strong, hard, sweaty practice. And I was drawn to that. Uh, and it's good. And I'm not discounting that, right?
Sure.
But
There's a lot of value in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
there is, and it's important. And don't skip it. Move your body every way, every day. But I needed to lay down. I needed to put the pillow under my bum. I needed to get another blanket. I needed to experience that for myself in a way that I was able to nurture myself. And I see that coming up with clients where I'll say, okay, let's just lay down and relax. And there's so much resistance to that. Well, you don't have to relax. I'm not asking you to do anything. You just lay down and listen, and I'm gonna guide you, and then your body will do what it will naturally do. And
Yeah.
then that kind of like layers, right? If you like, I definitely, when I first started, had so much, I was just a bundle of tension.
Mm,
Um, and it was a real unraveling to come back down to those layers of like, I am comfortable, I am safe. It
mhm.
is fine to ask for what I want, and I can get my needs met. And it's okay that I needed movement more yesterday than what I need today, or I planned a workout today and I'm not going to do it that way because my body's not in that kind of condition and meeting my own needs in that way. It's really a beautiful thing. And it's yoga is one of those ways where you can really just kind of experience different kinds of yoga
Mhm.
and look for teachers that resonate with you. And sometimes you'll surprise yourself, right? Like when I first went into yoga teacher training, I thought, I'm a chick. I like chicks. I like girls. I like girls who teach. I
Yeah.
like listening to the female voice tell me things because it comes in a lot deeper, maybe because I had that wisdom from my dad. I don't need that.
Mhm.
But then I found myself drawn to these male teachers in
Mhm.
my yoga teacher and my yoga therapy training. So, the mind can play a trick on you about what you think you know about yourself. And
Yeah.
when you're open to how you actually really feel, like I'm really excited to see this teacher, you
Mhm.
know, one of the guys teachers that Tracy Mann, he's one of my favorite people, you know, and he's a dude,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, but he's
It's
a great teacher. And you
open.
have to stay open to there's more than meets the eye is the big message of yoga, right?
Mhm.
And be open to experiencing all that life has to offer, and rest, restorative yoga, yoga nidra, yoga naps,
Mhm.
these
Mhm.
things that are unstructured yoga naps, or I just feel like laying down. So I just lay down on the floor and I find myself a comfy spot and I get my little blanket and I just
Mhm.
lay there and rest now. I could not do that 10 years ago.
Mhm.
I wouldn't have done it. I would have pushed myself. I would have had more coffee.
Yeah. So you've seen that evolution in your relationship with yourself where now rest matters. I know you've been through some things and we won't have time to get into the full range of it, but you've been through some things. It seems like your experience of perimenopause was pretty severe and dramatic. And I'm curious if that's been part of what's informed your relationship to rest or your relationship to slowing down and not pushing yourself. Has that been a piece of it for you at all?
Yeah, definitely. Like going into perimenopause, my first worst symptom was anxiety. I
Mm,
did go to the doctor and I got a prescription, and I have no shame for that. And I think that everybody could look into that if they wanted to, or not if they don't want to. And I'm not going to tell you what to do.
sure. Yeah.
So don't tell me what to do. But yes, my antidepressant was very helpful. But I still had to really listen. I had to start to really listen to what was going on. Okay, well, now I'm feeling overwhelmed. What is it that I can do to help myself with that?
Hmm.
And it kind of requires a different level of self-acceptance because you wake up in a different body every day in perimenopause. It's kind of like being a puberty kid, right? Where you wake up and you have boobs. When did that happen? I don't know. I have boobs now. At the end of summer, I have boobs. I didn't have boobs at the beginning of summer.
Yeah.
Uh, that kind of thing where it's like every day you have to greet the day and accept what you're going through and find out what you need and adjust accordingly. So my whole life became a yoga therapy modification.
Mm.
And I became much more compassionate towards myself. And I had endometriosis, which was very painful. And it's not negotiable. When you're having endometriosis pain, it's not the kind of thing you can just take a Tylenol and keep going.
Yeah.
You really have to take care of yourself while you're going through that. And I was incredibly blessed, and I found a good gynecologist who did a surgery that worked for me. And I still have some, I feel like it's residual ghost pain
Mhm.
that's coming up because there's no sign of any trouble. Like all my tests are coming back really good. And I think I'm post-menopause now. In general, I feel much better. But if you didn't learn how to take care of yourself before you get into perimenopause,
Mhm.
you're probably going to learn to take care of yourself in perimenopause, or you're just going to be a mess the whole time,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know, unless you're one of the lucky ones, right? There's probably about 20% of the population that goes through perimenopause and then their period stops and they go, oh, I guess I'm in menopause and that's it. But
Yeah.
80% of us will have troubling, disruptive symptoms where we have to modify or change how we're working or when we're working or what kind of responsibilities we have. And certain things come off I looked at it like, what can I dump? Well, the volunteer stuff, I can dump that, right? Someone else can do that for now
Yeah.
and modify how I work. And it's been a real blessing to take what I've learned about myself and yoga therapy and to apply that to helping other women because I had someone ask me about that, like what are you doing with like what is it all about? And I was like, if you look back at all the crazy songs I wrote, because I have my poetry book, right?
Yeah.
Poetry and lyrics, I just put this out. That's all stuff that I wrote when I was a teenager and a young adult and getting out of that relationship that was really a toxic relationship.
Mhm.
um it's all, if you read it, it's all for chicks.
Mm.
All that stuff I was writing, I was trying to help other women that are going through that kind of stuff and let people know that they're not alone and that things can improve and that they will get better. And there's a little bit of faith that you can have in that, having someone a couple steps ahead of you with that mentorship. So there's really no different. It's just that now I have this focus. I've learned so much about perimenopause and menopause that I can really, like you said, dial in a program for that individual person. Because, when I started making it into more of a business, I had coaches saying, well, you need a thing. And then everybody does the same thing. And I was like, I just don't think that's going to work, right? Unless I can think of a way of categorizing women. And I still think that you would miss the boat about helping them if you've never really listened to yourself and you've gone through your whole life kind of doing the autopilot thing and getting through the day.
Yeah.
It's a skill.
Yeah. And it seems foundational to have that self-awareness because if you don't have that self-awareness, you can't ask and tune in and honor. So
And
it's
it's patriarchal that we don't learn how to do that. It's
right.
actually the conspiracy of teaching little girls to not listen to their body so that we end up being a victim and end up in those situations where we're like, how did I get here? I don't even know. Because if you don't know what's going on and you don't know your body and you don't know how you feel and you don't know what you can, and you don't even know that you can say no,
Right.
that makes you a perfect victim. You don't even know what's going on. No one has told you anything about it, that you didn't even realize that people could, you know, do an evil thing on purpose to a young girl
Hmm.
because there's no consequence for that because no one believes you, or if they do, they say it's your fault.
Right. Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
there's so much there.
That's the grand conspiracy. So we're
Yeah.
teaching women how to listen to themselves and say, I need a glass of water, or I thought I was okay with that, but today I'm not. So I need to do
Mm.
it differently or I need to not do it. And that's okay. It's totally fine. It's wonderful. Your mother would want you, your real mother in her right mind, in her true heart, would want you to have a nap when you're tired. Like I'm gonna cry because I miss my mom and it's almost Mother's Day, but she's been gone 20 years and you never stop missing your mom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, it sounds like you've experienced a lot, like another awakening in perimenopause. And
Mm.
it's also illuminated a passion that you have to speak to other women about that. I know that you founded a Facebook group that's got like 13,000 women in it, which is insane, by the way. To really like bridge the gap between having these conversations in quiet or not having them at all. I mean, I think a lot of women are just Googling or searching
Yeah.
the internet, but not talking about this stuff. And I feel like it's been such a positive movement to bring perimenopause out into the light and for there to be programs like yours. And I've had other guests on my podcast who are experts as well. And it's just, I think it's so important to be talking about these things and recognizing these things and acknowledging that for many women, this midlife perimenopause timeline is a time of massive self-awakening because I love that mindset of like the body will whisper and then the body will raise its voice and then the body will yell. And so I feel like for many women, perimenopause is a body that's yelling if we've not had that teaching around listening to the body, honoring the body, asking the questions, having that relationship with self, that yoga practice is just frankly so freaking good at helping us to have that holistic relationship with ourselves.
Yeah. And I was going to say, my Baptist grandmother would never talk about anything.
Mm,
I remember asking my dad because I was living with my dad, just him and me when I got my first period.
hmm
And I remember asking him about, his childhood and what grandma was like. I didn't get to have a relationship with my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. I was born later in his life and she passed away. But I think I was 4 or 5 and we lived in a different city. So, he said, my sisters got their period and we weren't supposed to know.
What?
And I saw something in the garbage and I got in trouble for asking. But then my sister told me that she had gotten her period and that we weren't supposed to talk about it.
Mm,
So as the siblings kind of educated each other and were honest and highly bonded. My dad had really great relationships with his two sisters and his brother.
yeah.
But I was like, wow, that's so different from my mom, who I think, she was a rebellious hippie and was like, I'm going to tell them, I'm an open book and we're going to talk about everything. So we did. We talked about everything. And I thought that was normal.
hmm
And, I think that we are kind of breaking those chains. Not that I have anything against religion. I really don't. I just
Yeah.
have something against the idea that, you don't have that body autonomy. That really bothers me. You
hmm
need to know your body. And in order to know your body, I think you need to be able to ask those questions. And
Yeah.
so I try to do that, fill in those gaps as much as I can and make sure that that's why I don't really have an opinion on exactly how a woman wants to approach her perimenopause or menopause journey.
hmm
Like, I've had people say, well, you're really into prescriptions. Like, I'm not. I do natural stuff too. I do all kinds of different supplements, but they're hand-picked that
Yeah.
work with the prescriptions that I'm taking. And I think that for me in the Buddhist philosophy, right, of the middle way,
hmm
that's the middle way for me as a Western woman to take advantage of the wonderful things that I can take advantage of with modern technology. And also, make sure that I'm trying to eat healthy and moving the
And
body.
yoga. I mean, yoga therapy. You are yoga therapying yourself all the time. That's very
Yeah.
integrative of
Yeah.
you.
Every day, all day.
Well, it has been such a treat to dive into conversation with you. As we both suspected, we were just able to take it and run with it.
Uh,
I always like to ask as a closing question, how yoga has been a part of your growth and healing journey. And obviously, you've touched on that at several different points in our conversation, but if you could just speak directly to that, I'd love to hear.
yeah, going back to music, there's this concept in music, there's a cantus firmus, which is like the note that goes through the entire piece of music, right? So
Mhm.
everything's always coming back to this note. It goes back around and it comes back. So this thing is the thing that's the basis that you can always come back to. And
Yeah.
a lot of us, unfortunately, put that on another person, the husband, the father, the mother, the priest. That's their canctus firmus. And what do people do? They people. So eventually they're sick or tired or they can't do it.
Hmm.
Whereas yoga is always there. Yoga is always there. It doesn't really go anywhere. And as you age and your body changes and things change and your need is different, you can find a different style, a different teacher, a different way of doing it. You can always modify. There's no way that, there's no yoga that's absolutely off the table for everybody. There's
Yeah.
a way to do it. And you have to, you know, get to have your creativity involved in how you evolve with yoga. But that's how I look at it. Yoga is like this thing that I always come back to. Like when I tried to give away that Paramahansa Yogananda book, the last time I tried to give it away, the next day someone came to my door and handed me that book.
That is amazing.
And that's when I was like, okay, I surrendered Paramahansa Yogananda.
You're
I
clearly meant to
surrender.
be in my life. Yeah. So for you, yoga, and gosh, I feel so seen and held by that description. Like it is just this perpetual baseline that you can return to, you can be held by, you can be nourished by, you can come back to yourself through no matter where you are, no matter if body is mad or sick or tired or feeling flowy and free and light. Like there's a way for you to be held and supported by this. And so it sounds like it's been there really all along, but in more intentional ways for you in these later years.
Yeah. And even relationships, don't you find like, you know, the yoga friends that I've made,
Hmm.
we have a connection that's
Yeah.
just even if you said, oh, I'm a flow, that's my thing, and that's what I do, and that's not my thing, doesn't matter. We have that. The philosophy of yoga is underneath any kind of physical practice.
Yes. Oh, for sure. It's a common ground. And I feel like it really is for people that aren't in the yoga practice world. They don't speak the language, right? And then so to have people that get it, that know the magic of yoga, I like to say the magic of yoga because to me, I really don't know how to describe how incredible yoga is without magic because it feels that way. It's a common ground that unites us all. So thank you for coming on today. It's been such a treat to have you. If people want to find you on the internet, where do I point them towards?
I'm on Facebook probably too much. So that's easy, and I'm on LinkedIn under my real name, Jessica Erlandson. And you can send me messages or try and join the group. You have to answer all the questions to get into the CPMS group.
Okay.
Uh,
And what's
I
the
have
name of your
volunteers running
group?
that.
Just like let's state it really clearly for everybody.
Yeah, it's CPMS, Canadian Perimenopause Menopause Support.
Okay.
I have 7 volunteers that help me run that group. Otherwise, I couldn't because with 13,000 people,
Yeah.
it's a lot of activity. So we look. So if you tried to join, me or one of the volunteers would go to your profile, have a look at you and see what's going on and say, is it a real person?
Mm,
Like there are tells that you can see that it's actually a real person and that they're really probably in perimenopause and genuinely need the help.
yeah.
And that has kept doing that, manually looking at all the people applying, has meant that we ended up with this big group of actual people.
Mm,
And the ones that, are judgy and mean and tell you what to do, they end up leaving
mhm.
or getting removed.
Yeah.
So we have a really, it's a very unique group in that way because we kind of, and even the volunteers just kind of look at the posts and go, oh, that's a little snippy and a little mean. And one of us will send them a message and say, like, are you having a bad day? Or
Mm,
like, do you realize that this comes across as snippy and mean? And
yeah.
then have the person be like, oh, my dog just died, or, like whatever.
Sure. But it
They
sounds
just
like
leave it alone.
it's a place for real support. I also saw that it's so a lot of my audience is in the United States. Obviously, we have a global audience as well, but the majority are here in the United States. And so it is available to
Oh
them as
yeah.
well. It's not
Yeah,
just
yeah. It's international. Because I'm writing books and releasing them, we decided to make it international. It's just that if you come in and you say, I'm taking this medication called XYZ,
Mm-hmm.
can you tell me stories about that? Our systems are just slightly different. So we might have the same medication, but it would be called something different. So
Okay.
when someone
Yeah.
answers, they'll be giving you a Canadian answer, which
Sure.
may or may not apply, right? Like our system is a little bit different. In Canada, you can just go meet a doctor if you can get one and go meet them and sign up with them. It doesn't really matter. Whereas American system's different, where you have to be, with certain doctors, and so that limits your options. So, not we're not unsympathetic, but our advice of just go get a different doctor might not be something that you can do. So just keep in mind that's the only thing is that we're talking about Canadian sources and Canadian sources of information.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a lot of different people in there from all over the place. It's quite fascinating. That was not my intention when I started the group. I just wanted to talk about perimenopause with
Uh-huh.
other people that wanted to talk about it. But obviously, that seems to be one of the gifts I have is bringing people together.
Yeah, excellent. Well, all the listeners just know that in the show notes on the podcast or on YouTube in the description, you can find links to Jessica's work and her website if you'd like to learn more about her. Thank you for being here today. It's been fun having
Yeah,
you on.
really, I was like, I bet we could talk all day
I think we
when we
could.
first started. Yeah, for sure.